Well, what did you think about the thumbnail you just clicked on? That image was taken in Iceland last year during the summer months. And we all know it doesn't snow in summer. So what is it? Snow or not? Well, if you guessed infrared, then you're right. I welcome you to the magical world of infrared photography. That image was taken with my infrared converted camera with a 720 nanometer sensor. But you also can achieve the same effect by placing an infrared filter, one of these. It's a Hoya filter. You place it in front of your lens, but you will need a tripod, just like when you're doing long exposures with an ND filter. So stay with me so I can show you the editing process of infrared photography, which is very easy and you don't need any special editing software. I will be using Adobe Camera Raw and a little bit of Photoshop. Shall we start? So here we are over in Adobe Camera Raw. When you take infrared images, this is how they turn out on the editing software. Everything is red, and here we have the whites. In infrared, anything that is green will turn out white. It will give you that snowy look. Right, we're going to start editing. The first thing I do, I go to the exposure panel. I reduce the highlights, just like in any normal image where we have details in the sky. The shadow I'm going to increase slightly, not too much. And then I'm going to leave the whites how they are and the blacks how they are. I'm going to increase the contrast a bit. We don't have any more colors in the image. All we have is the red. I'm going to reduce slightly the exposure. And that's it. I've already set the detail panel. I have the luminance, the noise reduction up to 20. The sharpening is 50. And these are set as you can see. I'm going to go back up to the effects panel, increase slightly the texture, just around 10, and ever so slightly the clarity. I'm going to use the dehaze slider, just a bit. Always check your histogram for the clippings of the blacks or the highlights. And then from here we're going to take it over to Photoshop, where we'll be turning it to black and white. This image I will also be turning it into a fine art image also. And now we're over in Photoshop. The first thing I do in Photoshop is make a duplicate background. So if we make a mistake, we always have our original copy. We'll be using mostly this panel on the right side, lower corner. Now here we're going to turn it to black and white. I'll be going up to the black and white here. It's giving me a presetting already. What I do on the infrared images, I use the auto. And from here, I'm going to close it. And I'm going to go back down to this circle, the black and white circle. And I'm going to use the gradient map. Because as you can see, the image looks rather flat. Using the gradient map,
You have the blacks is graded all the way to the whites. Go down to this drop down window, press the classic, and now it gives you much more contrast and whites and some more detail. If you want to go further, just click on the gradient map here, which I always do. And here you can adjust the sliders according to your image and liking. I'm going to reduce the blacks. I'll leave it how they were and just increase a bit more the whites. Okay, I'm going to press the OK. Close this one. And you can check the before and afters here. It's much better. I'm going to close here by flattening the image. I take it back into Adobe Camera Raw, or if you're using Lightroom, it's the same thing, no difference. Back in Adobe Camera Raw, and here we'll be doing the masking. I'm not gonna touch any more of these sliders. I'm just gonna use the masking tools. First thing I do, use the linear gradient. I'm gonna use it over the sky. I go a bit further down, and now as you can see, the mask has gone over the mountain here, the hill, whatever, and we don't want that. We just want to use it on the sky. I'm going to give you a very good tip. Go over to this side of the mask, click on these three dots here, and use intersect mask with sky. Select the sky, let it render. It's detecting the sky. My PC is a bit slow. And now you can see it's just selected the sky without the mountain. And here I'm going to reduce the highlights. And I'm going to reduce the exposure. Another tip, don't go too far down, because as you can see here, you get some haloing around the mountain. We don't want that. Just dial it back up again until that halo is gone. Here I'm gonna use another mask, another linear gradient for the top part again over the first linear gradient, and just reduce it down a bit. Reduce the exposure somewhat there. Gonna go back to the mask and use another linear gradient and just slightly cover the bottom part. Here I'm going to reduce the exposure, not too much. And I'm going to now go over to the radial gradient. And here I'm going to go in the center of the image. I always make sure that the mask is even on all the sides. Here I slightly increase the exposure, not too much, just a subtle movements, around 20. Okay, I'm gonna use another mask, another radial gradient, which I put over the first radial gradient. and here we'll be doing the vignette. I always give my images that vignette, which draws the eye to the center of the image. We'll be inverting the vignette, the mask I mean, and I lower the exposure. Somewhere there. Okay, and now we're ready from the masking. As you can see, the image is a bit flat here. What I do and the final adjustment, I go click OK and go back to Photoshop. The image has changed. I'm going to make another background copy. Just click on the image and slide it down to the plus sign. And here I'm going to give it some more life in the whites. I'm going to use the curves tool. I go up to the default preset, click on the linear contrast, and the blacks, I'm going to not lift them up, I'm going to reduce the blacks and put it where it was before. The whites, I'm going to click here, and you can increase it by increments by pressing the up arrow on your keyboard. You can see it's raising a bit. Okay, and here I think for this image I'm going to raise the blacks, not darken them, make them more lighter. And there we have it. Perfect. Step back, click the eyeball for the before and after. If you want to reduce the mask you just done with the curve, you can use the opacity, how much you want. I'm going to use it all the way up to 100. And here we have our image. I'm going to flatten it again. Now for this video, I'm going to give you another tip. I'm going to give it, use the Autumn effect. We'll be using a Gaussian blur tool. Make another copy. You don't have to do this, but I like using it in my infrared images. I go up to the filter, go on blur and use Gaussian blur. I usually set this radius to the megapixels of my camera, which is around 26. I click OK. Okay, the image is blurry. So what I do, I'm gonna give you a very good tip. What we'll be doing is we'll be giving the highlights, the whites, that autumn effect, dreamy look effect, which here I go up to the image here, go on the adjustments. This is one of the best, most effective ways of giving a natural autumn look. Increase the brightness up to around 30, 31. Increase the contrast all the way up to 95, not all the way up to 100, around 95, 96. Click OK. Now the image looks rather weird looking. Go over to opacity on the right side and reduce it all the way to 0, and you go back to your original image. Now, to give that autumn look, slightly increase it to your liking, which I usually do to around 13%. If you click the eyeball, you can see the before and after. It gives you a much more ethereal look. I'm going to increase it a bit more, up to 15. Around 15, 16. Click the eyeball again. And there you have the final image. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial on infrared images, and I really enjoy infrared photography. It's something magical looking. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check my final image at the end of the video and hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys, and thanks for your patience, and see you in another video. Bye and thank you.